Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be tackling something pretty ambitious, a concept from Quranic reflection that's often called the Hue of Allah, or Sibghatullah. And for those of you listening, this isn't just a theological discussion, not at all. We're looking at it as a kind of rational, action-oriented philosophy. Our whole mission here is to unpack how this religious metaphor provides a blueprint, a system, a sovereign intellect, you could call it, that structures how we should actually act in the world.
And that search for a blueprint is, I think, why this has such high stakes for you right now. I mean, so many people feel stuck.
Stuck how?
Well, you're sort of caught between two options. On one hand, you have this purely subjective, blind faith that can feel a bit disconnected from reality. And on the other, you have this cold societal nihilism that just strips away all meaning.
Right. Faith or nothing.
Exactly. And the source material here offers a definitive third way. It starts with this pretty radical quote, "Adopt Allah's color, none can compare." And that's not just, gentle advice. It's an instruction. It turns your life from this blank canvas into a masterpiece in the making. It demands you consciously align your character with these divine qualities.
Okay, so let's unpack that. If the goal is to align ourselves, our society, with this standard, how do we actually do that? How do we adopt this hue? Because, the common critique is that ethics often stops at just good intentions.
Right.
We need a mechanism, something that takes us from wanting to be good to actually, performing good actions.
Objectively. And the mechanism is, it's inherently rational. It's defined by 4 cornerstone attributes. And adopting the hue isn't really an emotional thing. It's a rational choice to embody these attributes systematically.
So what are they?
The first one, and it's maybe the biggest, is mercy. The source talks about the divine being sent as a mercy to the worlds. This boundless mercy then calls you to forgive, to be kind, and to be generative in your interactions.
But hold on, how is mercy rational? I mean, forgiving someone who's genuinely hurt you often feels like the most irrational thing you can do. It's almost counter to self-preservation.
That's the key question, isn't it? The rationality here is about long-term sustainability, not, short-term emotional satisfaction. Think about it. If the default human response to every mistake is just destruction, retribution, cutting people off forever,
Society would just fracture.
it would completely fall apart. Mercy, as a divine attribute, calls for a system that allows for repair, for redemption, for growth. It demands our response to human frailty be generative, to restore the person, not just discard them. It's the ultimate ethical risk assessment.
That's a great way to put it. Generative versus destructive.
Yeah.
So mercy sort of defines the terms of engagement. But the second attribute, justice,
Yeah,
that seems to be where things get really rigid.
Yeah.
Maybe even breaking those bonds.
precisely. Justice demands unwavering integrity in every single decision, and it doesn't care about your personal feelings. The challenge laid out is radical. You have to stand firmly for justice, even if it's against yourself.
Against yourself.
Or your parents, your relatives, regardless of whether they're rich or poor.
Okay, I have to challenge that a bit. Rationally, we are wired for trial loyalty. Our survival mechanisms are all about protecting our own kin, our group. So how does this framework justify breaking that fundamental bond? Testifying against your own mother, for instance, for some higher objective equity.
It justifies it by redefining the ultimate community. It says that true human harmony, the most rational, stable, sustainable society, can't be built on subjective favoritism.
On my tribe first.
Exactly. It has to be built on objective, divine equity. So when you testify against a family member for the sake of justice, you're choosing to align with a universal higher order, the Ummah, over a temporary, limited human bond. The long-term rationality of justice outweighs the short-term comfort of loyalty.
So it's a mechanism for societal equilibrium, not individual comfort.
Okay. So if justice sets the hard boundaries, the third attribute, compassion, must be what connects that high-level law back down to the individual.
Yes, that's an excellent distinction. Compassion is like the operational arm of mercy. It mirrors the sustainer who actively nurtures every living being. It's not just about forgiveness. It's about recognizing the intrinsic dignity in everyone.
So it's more active.
Much more active. It translates into seeking out and healing wounds, looking after the needy, building bridges. It's the requirement to turn your goodwill into actual proactive systems of welfare and support.
I see. So mercy is the response to error. Compassion is the response to need.
You've got it. And the fourth attribute, wisdom or al-hakim, is the engine that drives the whole system. This is the pursuit of deep knowledge, of discerning the balance of life. This is the rational application phase.
And what does that application look like? Is it just about being smart? No, it's about moving beyond surface knowledge. It's understanding cause and effect, seeing the patterns. It's applying Quranic insights as an interconnected system, not just a list of rules. Wisdom is what keeps justice from becoming rigid, or mercy from becoming sentimental.
Which leads to the big operational question. How does anyone even start? How do you incorporate these huge attributes into your daily life? The logic says there has to be some kind of preparatory inner work first.
There does. And that inner work is the first necessary act of reason. The sources call for every soul to look at what it has put forth for tomorrow. It's basically a severe, honest spiritual audit.
What are you auditing for?
You're rationally identifying the corrosive elements. Things like arrogance, greed, animosity. These aren't just character flaws, they're system failures. I mean, arrogance makes justice impossible, right?
Because you can't admit you're wrong.
And greed makes compassion impossible because all your resources are focused inward. So you have to root those out first. And then you replace them with virtue, nurtured through reflection and deep engagement with the Quran. You have to prepare the canvas before you can apply the hue.
Right. And this is where it gets really interesting for me. It moves from that inner work, the inner tint, to what the sources call the public tapestry. If my personal virtue is one instrument, say, the strings, how does the whole orchestra play the score?
That's the perfect question. The individual virtues are the instruments, but the performance, the full symphony, is the law-driven system known as deen. This is where the hue of Allah stops being just a personal thing and becomes a public operating system for society.
Color is law in action.
Exactly. Personal justice has to become societal legislation. Individual mercy has to become a public welfare system. Compassion has to define the ethics of your schools and hospitals.
So you're saying if a society is genuinely trying to embody this hue, I should be able to look at its laws, its economic policies, and actually see the architecture of mercy and justice built into them.
Absolutely. That is the rational requirement. If you have the rituals, the prayer, the fasting, but you don't have economic equity or fair governance, then the sources say these are just empty rites. The hue is incomplete.
So each believer's life is like a single brushstroke.
A single necessary stroke. But the grand masterpiece, the community's well-being, only emerges when all those strokes work in harmony, and the law is what ensures they don't clash.
Okay, so you've laid out the attributes, the inner work, the external law. What about the impact? The source material argues that this is a rational vision, that belief, when you implement it this way, isn't a blind leap, it's a logical conclusion.
And that brings us to a really key concept, tawakkul, or active reliance. Most people misunderstand this as passive hope, just sitting back and hoping for the best.
Right, I hope things work out.
But here it's defined as a dynamic partnership, and it's rooted in reason.
How is it a partnership?
It's about the sequence of effort. Rational effort always comes first. You plan, you strive, you consult the experts, you do everything you can to the best of your ability. And only after you have exhausted every rational human effort, only then do you entrust the final outcome to the higher power.
So if you didn't do the work, your reliance is just wishful thinking.
It's not tawakkul. The certainty of a good outcome is actually predicated on the sincerity of your effort. You strive with excellence and you trust that excellence will be met with guidance. It's the ultimate rational alignment.
And that makes the striving continuous. The moment you stop putting in the effort, the hue starts to fade, because you're no longer meeting the prerequisite for reliance.
And that striving requires perseverance. The text says, indeed, with hardship will be ease. The challenges aren't a sign of failure. They're the mechanism for refinement. They stress test the system and make your alignment stronger.
And the final piece that maintains it all.
Gratitude. It's not just a feeling, it's a rational feedback loop. The source says, if you are grateful, I will surely increase you. When you practice gratitude, you're rationally acknowledging that the good outcomes are tied to applying these attributes. It forces you to analyze and repeat the processes that led to success.
This has been, well, a really rigorous deep dive. The Hue of Allah is a compelling framework. It demands both that deep inner purification and a very real external systematic implementation. It's personal illumination for sure, but it's aimed at societal transformation.
And that transformation all comes down to rational choice. If the grand design requires every part of the tapestry to reflect these attributes to be stable and whole, then the final question for you is, what single concrete attribute, mercy, justice, or wisdom could you rationally choose to implement more systematically in your public life starting today to deepen the hue of your own corner of that tapestry? That's the work that matters.